Shiny Side Out. This is Dave.
This is Mackie.
That's our show. It's crazy. This is episode 488.
80, and 400. That's crazy.
Where it is crazy. It's crazy on the
It's
dawn.
Cray.
Moon of Ben. WZZR is the station name, and we're coming to you from Australia. It's actually Sydney, Australia, or regions around Sydney. Mackie lives in Pemulwuy and I live in Narara. It's a great place to live, both respectively. I'm feeling a little bit luckier, but we'll get to that in a minute. But then I'll shine the disappointment on it. Catch us, that's the station, plus Mackie and I. Catch us on air, online, and anywhere on your smart device. Because you can just be anywhere. It doesn't matter anymore. You could be, not in the depths of the Grand Canyon, probably there's no cell signal, but you could be anywhere near a cell tower and get it on your phone. Yeah, you used to be able to be on public transport and listen to us. You can download stuff from the archives as well and listen to it in your own time. How's that for freewheeling, Mackie? Who knew? But if you like to stay at home, you can listen to it on a Grace Tabletop digital radio. The show prior to us is Solaris Blue Ravens show. It was a great show. In fact, I heard all of it today, and it was fantastic, and you need to catch her on air or maybe in the archives. It's like a Patreon thing. Get in there and have a look, freedomslips.com. But the reason why it was so fantastic, because she had Robert W. Sullivan the Fourth on tonight, and he's an author, and as you can guess, that they'd been discussing his new book, Cinema Symbolism 3. So I'm presuming from the discussions, the prior two books were also about that, but he's also written some other work. So he's got a lot to say. I think it's worthwhile. He spotted a whole bunch of things, and some of the things he was talking about tonight near the end of the show was about Kubrick. Stanley Kubrick putting a lot of symbolism into his movies and repeating a bunch of things, and I have to say, very good. I'm getting a Biden. I'm getting a bit Bidenish, and I lean into the mic. It was very good. So that's I'll just move on because that's really weird. And the subtitle to the book was "The Mysteries of Occult Hollywood Unveiled." So that was really cool. It only costs about $5 a month too via Patreon to get access to the archives. Because if you really don't know who Solaris is, you have to catch up with her. If you only know us and our show. Look, thank you very much, or maybe you've been listening to her show and you've stumbled into ours. I hope you find it.
Woo! Slipping down the hill.
If you're in America and you're on shift work, good for you. Keep it up, and But if you've got insomnia, geez, I know how you feel.
Oh yeah.
That's what melatonin is for, and it's better than drinking yourself into a stupor in which you fall asleep and wake up not knowing that you slept. At least, I don't know, melatonin is at least a step forward. Good luck. Well, that's what I've been leaning on recently, because there's so much stuff in the world and there's not enough time to research it all. Mackie, I don't know. I know you're very similar. I feel like 5 to 6 hours a night is plenty. Plenty sleep.
I probably do with about 3 or 4.
Yeah.
Have been for years, but that's because I think I had I'm gonna need a coffee coffee infusion.
My
my blood is in danger of thinning out my coffee. I know, I used to work ungodly hours, because no offense, but the Americans only know one time zone.
Yeah,
America.
That's right. There's a song about America, Mickey. It was in a movie.
Yeah, it's America.
Yeah,
yes, America. No,
not that one.
That's not the one.
I'm gonna say America. Yeah. There's a word in between. There's a song. Animated film. Sorry, a marionette film. It's very cool. when I mentioned that Mackie was in Pemulwuy, I did that for a reason, because we've got a lot of lockdowns coming and around and about, and all varying depending on your zone. But I'll tell you, the traditional custodians of the land didn't have any lockdowns. Lucky them. In their way of surviving and tending and caring for the land, they didn't require it. So where I live, the people here are the Darkinjung and Mackie. What about you?
Yeah, for me, it's the Rug people.
Yeah. And they did a hell of a job of looking after the planet, their portion of it. And we've done nothing but pillage, rape, and, I don't know, sell it at the lowest cost to anyone who wants to buy it. And it's kind of disappointing. Look, it's probably inevitable that a species who wants, just before they leave the planet for good and go zooming around the universe, would require resources to do so. So it's probably a thing that we do anyway. So even if we were just to, say 30 mixed race and mixed sex people landed on a planet somewhere, crash landed, we'd eventually, end up with a spacefaring race, and it could be as short as 1,000 years. If we kind of had tech when we landed, we'd want to get back to that. So how quickly you could forget it and how quickly you could reestablish, I don't know. But you would end up mining, and if you had the right brain on your shoulders, a head on your shoulders, you would not have the money system. And fractional reserve lending, kill me now. Yeah, you wouldn't do that. You probably have a really good governance system that just didn't matter.
You would not. In fact, we're pretty confident that the Anunnaki did not have that. But before we go on, though, I'd like to just call out one thing, Dave.
That we need to pay respects to the elders, past, present, and future.
Oh, that's one. But you want to do that?
Yeah, I just did.
You just did. Well done. No, yesterday was the 24th of July, which marks or would have marked the birthday of Nighthawk, the station.
Oh, yes.
The station founder, if you will. And obviously he passed away. It's 2 years now. Jeez. And in fact, in September it'll be 2 years. So yeah, just just want to remember him, giving us this platform, establishing it, and letting us pretty much say whatever we want for more than 10 years now. But yeah, thank you, Nighthawk. We do remember, and we miss you as well. Happy birthday, wherever you are. And
you're in our hearts, man. I heard his voice on a bumper. I joined in, actually. I joined into Ahmad Pater's show midweek in the I don't know, like 1 o'clock in the morning, our time. And it was great to hear the bumpers that I hadn't heard for a while, because they're cycled to a different time zone. And just saying, amazing to hear his voice again, man. I miss the fellow. And you know what? If he was alive today, he'd be going, "I told you so."
Oh yeah, that's it. Every truth out there. I told you so.
Yeah, he just completely, because he was across everything.
It was.
Yeah. And I suppose he influenced us all. And I think his encouraging work has provided now a platform that lives on, if that makes sense. So, Becky, the top of mind is the virus. This never-ending. It's the new war on terror, right?
Oh, completely. In fact, this will never end. But to be clear, we're not doctors, we're not medical professionals, and none of what we say should be taken as medical advice in any shape, way, or form.
Yep.
These are purely our opinions, and if you need to inform yourself medically, please do so at the appropriate time with the appropriate authorities or people that you trust in the medical field.
Correct.
Okay?
That kind of makes me feel better already.
Right?
Yeah.
Placebo!
So, we're not medical professionals. I've got to say that it's as I'm looking into the virus itself and I'm watching, maybe from a distance, I think is the best way to put it. They've had a lot more time now in lockdown. There's, certainly no commuting around. You don't go anywhere. You've got a 10 kilometre limit to where you can go. So it's been a different experience. And I'm going to say the Australian government is trying to be as agile as it can. And the 80% mark, Mekki, I could never understand. They go, we need 80% of the population.
It's the old fallacy. It's a fallacy that we're still hanging on to, because at 80%, from medical research,
here we go. He's going to say HI again. Yep. But we know that with this particular pathogen, that's not the case. We know how. Okay, to drop everything else, look at Manaus. Manaus is the second largest city in Brazil, and the first outbreak of COVID or SARS-CoV-2, they had. The estimate was that about 80 or 90% of the people had it. That was the estimate. It hit them pretty hard, right? But then it didn't stop wave 2 or 3 coming through. So herd immunity, and this is taking the variants into consideration as well. Herd immunity is not a thing. Think of SARS-CoV-2 as the flu, influenza, different strains every year. If you had the flu before, you will have the flu again. If you had SARS-CoV-2 before, you will have it again. Maybe not the same one, clearly not the same one, but certainly the next variant that comes along. And I just want to say something very, very quickly, Dave, because it really upsets me. I think we can all agree that there's this small group of people, the parasites as I call them, that have in mind essentially not our best interests at heart. Okay, depopulation, Agenda 21, etc., they're real things in their mind. We're called useless eaters and all kinds of things. And you go through the literature, especially the late 19th, early 20th century, you can see it all there. It's all in black and white. It's on paper. It's in print. There's no secrets about any of this. It's actually, it was an agenda, right? And then it was sort of translated into fiction in Brave New World and 1984, etc., etc. Of course, we've now well surpassed whatever was put into fiction, and we now have seen what's happening with the world. We're well beyond it. If you say that this thing isn't real, and I'm making it very clear, I think it's a pandemic. That's my opinion. Opinion, right? If you say this thing is not real, you're playing right into the hands of these people that want us to get sick with this thing. Okay, it is out there, and I know people personally, right, that had family members affected. I know people that have passed. I know what's happened overseas, because believe it or not, I have, virtually all of my friends are overseas in different countries, in the States, India, Singapore. They're spread everywhere, yeah?
Germany. I've got people, and they have no reason to lie to me, right? So I know what's what, I know what's going on. Now, it's a thing, okay? It is out there, and it is mutating, and I always said from the beginning India would be very tough to deal with, and it was, lo and behold. And so I don't understand why some people play into the hands of Agenda 21. I don't get it. I do think that they're being led by people. Yeah, sure, but look, am I pro-vaccine? Well, everybody has to make up their own mind. Okay, you decide for yourself what you want to do. You don't want to do it. You don't want to. You do it. Whatever. All I know is that when I was young, there was polio, and now there isn't. Right, and other things as well, like the smallpox, etc., etc. Right. Now, is this a vaccine? Is this problematic? Yes, it is, because we have no longitudinal studies. We now have volume studies, so we've got latitude, if you will. We know what happens in large populations, but we have no idea what the long-term effects are, and that's a danger. It is. Right, it's a fact. That's why GPs and the pharmaceuticals themselves have been exempt from any criminal prosecution going forward. That's a fact as well. Completely exempt. No one can be held accountable for any of the side effects as they might manifest themselves in the future. So what you do in that space is your problem. That's fine. However, right, make no mistake, this thing is going around and it's taking people out. Right, and long-term effects we don't even know yet. Okay, and it's also doing another thing. It's making us live in fear. Don't live in fear. Bring the fear back. Just be smart about it. Just be smart. I mean, I don't understand. I mean, I don't want to live with this thing, and I don't want to end up in jail or be fined either. You know what I mean? if you truly want to live off the grid, knock yourself out, go ahead. I mean, if I could, I would. There's other considerations here as well. But make no mistake, if you're saying this thing isn't real, we should just go out and do our own thing, and all this should be open, you're playing right into the hands of Agenda 21.
You're actually the shill in your group of friends. All right? Even though typically a shill is someone who is being paid by the government to spread misinformation. But if they've gotten to you and that's what you now believe is the case, then you're actually working to benefit them. So just think about that. Mickey, the Australian government is about to advise that vaccinations are okay to be delivered to 12 to 15-year-olds.
It already happened in
No.
the Netherlands. No, in the Netherlands.
Yeah. But here, the Therapeutic Goods Administration has said yes, but they've got a TIAG, I think it's called, which is a group that are officially designed to make the ruling into law. So that hasn't happened yet, and it's just about to, because prior to that it was 16 and up. In America, they're talking about vaccinating the children without permission from the parents, suggesting that the child, if they can nod, they can accept the responsibility of it.
Insane.
That is nuts. Yeah, I know. That's more nuts than anything else. You may as well just say, "Oh, they're bringing pedophilia back," because if the child nods, then it's all right.
Can I just say something as well, though?
How can a child have a full comprehension of what this means?
You cannot. But see, we're caught between a rock and a hard place. And what I mean by that is this, right? There is no good answer here. There simply isn't a good answer. Why is that, Mackie? Because SARS-CoV-2 is a thing. It's mutating. It's out there. Different strains are going around, and there are mass graves being dug all over the place. It's just how it is. In India, in fact, the official variance figure to the average death toll is out by 4 million.
Mm-hmm.
So my point here is, so you've got this, in my opinion, released virus, right? It was released. And on the other hand, you've got a vaccine that's unproven, which may or may not have side effects. Who knows? I don't know, right? And it's certainly a risk either way. There's no good answer here. There is no good answer. And sorry, I think it was not much to it. Maybe. Well, I didn't want to really simplify it to just the message: live off the grid or get vaxxed. But ultimately, what other choices do we have? Providing SARS-CoV-2 is real, if you are not vaccinated, and let's assume that the vaccinations are effective, then you will get it. Will you die? Well, maybe not, but you might get sick. You might get really sick, right? Mm-hmm. If you're vaccinated, you probably won't get as sick if it's an effective vaccine, but there might be long-term consequences. There is no good place, and that's why they have maneuvered.
On both sides of the argument, there is a warning. Yeah,
the parasites have maneuvered us into a corner.
Yeah, that's right.
I want you to be. There's no clear path here forward. Mm-hmm. There simply isn't. Okay, if anybody can show me the clear path, I'd be happy to put you on the air. But I need evidence.
That's facts. Right. So we've got. In Australia, in Sydney, in the Sydney area, we've got a small outbreak which has now reached 2,000 from a single case. And it's spreading faster than they can lock it down. Even though we're in lockdown and we're not supposed to be getting out and about, well, there's still people getting out and about. And essential service people were also spreading it, who have the permission to go out and about. Now they've infected their own families. This is the problem. Now, we've gone up to 154 in the last day. Before that, it was like 130. Then before that, 120, 110, and it keeps going backwards and smaller. It's always getting bigger coming forward. Of the 154, less than half, 40%, were vaccinated. That means the other half, the 60% weren't. 50% of them were in the community. It was about 54% in the community. And 14% of them have an unknown origin. I thought those stats were really important to mention. There's still people who have the virus who are spreading it, and they're not registering where they are, and it's spreading. It's still spreading. And before it was only Southwest, then it became Cumberland and Blacktown areas. Mackie, how was it with you?
Look, we were recently included in the greater lockdown.
You're in Cumberland?
Yes, we are. Sorry, Holroyd. Cumberland. No, it's not Cumberland now. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So I'm part of that, and it's a fairly large local government area. In fact, I think you can't even travel all through it because we're only allowed to go 10 kilometers. But ultimately, this has to be put in perspective as well, please, everybody, right? In Australia, we have now had 150, 160 odd infections with a testing rate of 100,000 a day. 100,000. Okay, that's unprecedented. It's astounding. I mean, whatever. But my point is, so out of 100,000 people, 150 tested positive. That's 0.1%. Okay, so it's tiny. It's tiny. Now I'm not saying that we should throw caution to the wind or whatever. It's, again, I don't have any power here anyway. But the point is, people are overreacting as well. People are going nuts. Either in any camp, really. There are many camps, and everybody is just insane. Some people stocking up on toilet paper, other people go on protest, other people again, starting to dig little holes in their backyards to make sure they're not in harm's way. The flu, in Australia at least, is more deadly. Okay?
Yeah.
Now, what's going to happen here? This is what's going to happen in the future. I'm going to look at my crystal ball. Every year, there'll be a COVID shot, I'm going to call it. It's a COVID shot, and it'll be like the flu shot. And after a while, some people will take it, some people will not take it. In Australia, 900 people in 2019 died of the flu. 900 people. Right now, the death rate is a lot lower than with SARS-CoV-2, from what we can see. Significantly lower by I think several percentage points. It's still there, but that's 900 people that died of the flu. I don't see the same panic washing over the country every year when the flu arrives.
No.
People aren't rushing out to get the flu shot. Now, this thing is going to settle into a very similar thing, right? And by that time, well, who knows? It's going to be a better vaccine. I have no idea. I don't know. I really don't know. But the point is,
I don't believe that's going to be the case.
And we have got a much bigger problem looming in the north of our country here in Australia, which is tuberculosis. We shared this with you on our show on biological weapons. Okay, the Pacific region, including Australia, is under siege by tuberculosis. This is multi-drug resistant tuberculosis. Getting it is a death sentence. It won't kill you tomorrow, but it will kill you eventually, and sooner than you should die in under natural circumstances.
And it's awful.
And there's no news coverage of this anymore at all.
No, that's right.
But it's still there. TBC is a real danger in the Pacific region. In fact, the article that we shared with you was from 2019, and after that it was like radio silence. South Pacific on the verge of collapse, or the health system due to TB, tuberculosis.
That's right.
That's something that, it's our fault because we put all the antibiotics in it, and eventually this thing becomes resistant to all our efforts.
It's only because you don't kill all of it.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. Correct. No,
that's the way.
Yeah. And this thing is only the way it is. Okay, I see. Like say, I got to answer this. This is the chat room. I asked for evidence. That so 1 million years of us living in harmony with the biological world until the Rockefellers came along and started engineering microbes, releasing them with the claim only that which generates profit is effective. Now, I hate to say it, not much true, but the Black Plague, which killed a massive percentage of the European, certainly maybe even the global population, some 1,000 years ago, was not engineered by the Rockefellers. And diseases have been running rampant throughout human history. Are there new diseases appearing all the time? Yes, there are. Are some of them engineered? Absolutely. But diseases have spread all along. And sorry, TBC was a very common form of disease. In fact, my uncle had it, and he was sent to a sanatorium. And my great grandfather died of it at the turn of the century, early 20th century. So TB was called the wasting disease. Okay, tuberculosis. It's not a reaction to fluoride. TB predates all of the modern stuff. In fact, there was TB and smallpox that did away with the Native Americans. Okay, and no, oh,
don't, Mickey.
I can't. I can't walk down that rabbit hole. But I will have a separate show on it, and I will tell you what's what on that if you like.
All right. So I wanted just for everyone. I want to talk about what is the human's ability to fight the virus. So as we know, 90% of the people who contract the virus are okay. It's just a normal flu to them, or not even at all. They are asymptomatic and they just spread it to others, and it's just like sniffly nose kind of thing maximum, right? 10% need to be hospitalized of all the people who get it, and 2.3%. It's higher than 2, less than 3% of people. It's fatal. Okay. A person who was 30 who had no other medical conditions died just this week in Sydney due to the Delta strain. Just saying. Also a 70-year-old. But the 30-year-old surprised everyone, and a 2-year-old has it as well. All right. So I want to say that the reinfection rates, I've been doing some before Delta studies now that there was enough time to measure this, and this came from the UK, and the UK said that the reinfection rates before Delta were as low as 1% in 4 million cases, or 4 million people within a case study. Yeah, so that's pretty good. So that was before Delta. They were just dealing with the same strain, and the body's ability, once it had experienced the virus, was able to successfully fight it off next time, which is what the vaccination does. It just presents it to you and you're able to fight it off next time. Yeah? It doesn't say you don't get it, and it doesn't say you don't spread it. What it does say is that the people had a better experience the second time round. And that's why they're saying most people who were asymptomatic to coronavirus this time around actually had a recent coronavirus where their body was already able to recognize it. Those people who had been sheltered away for a long time in homes and nursing homes and in palliative care and the most vulnerable because they haven't had the virus or the flu in years. And therefore, as it crept up this coronavirus crept up on them, it wasn't very good for them. So what it means is that before the Delta variant, our immune systems were behaving just like vaccinated people. This is this completely separate topic, right? And I'll leave that to last. I'm going to say, when I look at the root cause analysis of country-to-country infections, this is what has been driving me spare. I can't believe it. I see all the stupid discussions the media is having about the virus are the real purpose of those discussions is to distract us all from what should be the real discussion. That being the complete negligence of our governments to put in place effective quarantine measures. Now, these are my thoughts after doing RCA, the root cause analysis on country-to-country infection. So we watched as China released infected people to the world. They wore hazmat suits. It was all in the media. They had temperature monitoring on the people's foreheads, and they were performing lockdowns or weld-ins. Weld-ins. That's a new one. What we know is that you can be infectious without any symptoms. That's just called asymptomatic. You won't even present with a temperature. So what we watched in China, what we watched them do is maybe poorly filter the infections. They didn't use quarantine. Now, we all followed suit and let those people into our countries. We let them in. We let people in from an infected country who they told, through the mechanisms they had in place, we allowed them in. And that's really bad. I mean, that's the worst thing we could have done across the planet in our respective countries. Now, I don't care if you're landlocked or an island like Australia. It's still bad, right? So I think it's important to remember how we all watched as Delta was discovered in India. Now we can't call it the Indian variant, right? It's called the Delta strain. They announced how bad it was, and then we watched as it spread across the globe. Again, into our countries. The governments did nothing new to stop it. In fact, the same useless methods of failed quarantining people in hotels with shared air conditioning, just like the cruise ships where the virus spread, to the bewilderment of the medical fraternity. How is it doing it? It can't be airborne. It must be droplets, right? So it's kind of been airborne the whole time. Hotels as quarantine facilities is as useless as opening the door of your speeding car and using your foot like a brake to stop it. That's what I see. You can tell, Mickey, I'm a bit passionate, right?
No, yeah, I know, but I've got really very sturdy boots. So
good luck. Good luck with that. It's not the Flintstones, right? So what our governments have done thus far is so ineffective. It seems to me like playing a video game via correspondence. That's how glacial the government's inactivity is. They really don't get it. Yeah. Unless, of course, right, I have to say, I never seem to be able to finish a level. Would be, how do I do that? My friend in Russia, it takes 8 weeks to get a letter back. And the level finished before I finished writing the letter. Right, the level finished. Look, could all this be intentional? You know, like orders from those orchestrating it from their bunkers. You know, the great reset. I wonder.
So let's be very clear. And this is actually now, since you asked the question, not that you know that you asked the question. I recently put a Facebook post up, and this I'm going to read it to you guys, and you can make of it with what you wish. Okay, then riddle me this: if we are indeed inside a Matrix-like construct, like I believe we are, the Black Iron Prison, the Panopticon, Plato's Cave, I don't really care what you call it, then what difference does it make if we get vaccinated? The one thing I find astounding is how many seekers of the truth are derailed by obvious red herrings. The Ascension event did not happen, just as Dave and I feared it wouldn't. The fear, and I mean to write fear with a capital F here, as well as the attending death and chaos were enough to delay it despite the efforts at Uluru at the end of last year. If you don't know what I'm talking about, PM me and I'll explain it to you. We are divided amongst ourselves. That is why they can go about plotting our continued imprisonment, limitation, and confusion. Wake up and smell the reality adjustment. Do not waste your time on the breadcrumbs trail. They'll leave for you. And I mean this absolutely and deeply. We are wasting a whole bunch of time and effort talking about things that don't lead to the ultimate liberation that we need to be concentrating on. It just doesn't. Okay, we are still caught within this reality matrix, within this Black Iron Prison, and we are playing by their rules. And we're playing by their rules by fighting them, or not fighting them, agreeing with them or not agreeing with them. We have to find a new paradigm where neither of those options is an option. Okay, that's my opinion. If you disagree, that's okay. But I've seen much, and I see more every day, and I can tell you, what I see doesn't fill me with a lot of confidence, right? There are events happening between a rock and a hard place we are right now, right? But the ultimate salvation, the ultimate restoration of our humanity is to escape this iron box, okay? That's what we're trying to do here. That's what the whole purpose of the show is. That's what we're talking about, the hypothesis, again, in show number 500. All right, everything else, it's interesting to talk about, you know, and certainly there are ramifications for continued, I guess, karmic reality, if you will, as far as our souls are concerned, or whatever you want to call it. You know, you can call it whatever you like. But ultimately, that's what we should focus on. Oh, and you know how many people are focused on that? Very, very, very few. Because it's really hard to leave behind all desire and all wants. Because that's what you have to do to escape this prison. Okay, you have to cut all the chains that tie you to this place. And that's all I'm going to say about this. Now you can, you know, unleash your hate, if you will.
Good luck with that. Oh, I hate mail.
Yeah.
Oh, it just, it happens. I wanted to say, Mackie, I want to move on from the virus because I think we covered it to death.
I think we have.
To death. Ha ha ha. Something about the world's weather. And it's another fabulous topic that I just love to cover. And the floods. Now, it started off like the week prior, right, with the floods in Germany. Was it this last week, wasn't it? Jeez, I don't know what time is going.
No, it's all happened in the space of a few days, my friend.
Yeah. So there's China, Germany, Turkey even.
Yes.
All with very similar quantities of water, with very similar footage. I swear, if you didn't see a person's face, you wouldn't know what country it was. Yeah? The floods, the brown, muddy water... The floods in China, man, the floods were so severe that the military blew up 2 catchments upstream from Henan province just to help the water flow. But they didn't tell those people south of the flooding, and then the water which then led to the floods in the Henan province itself. Look, there's estimations when you watch the right media, the correct media. If you watch like Chinese nation-state media, everyone was rescued. When you watch others, it's hundreds that died in the subway and hundreds that died in the tunnel flooding. And when you put it all together with all of the other people who were crying for help and everything, it might even be as high as 1,000 people that have passed away. So that you've got to imagine that the city traffic that was in peak hour, stuck in a 6-lane wide underground tunnel that goes beneath the city and pops up the other side, was still being charged the toll. And that was, and no, absolutely, still the people in the tunnel drowned because the tunnel filled up. And they go, oh no, you got to pay the toll. But it's the floods, no, you got to pay the toll.
That's insane.
And but there's a point here. The subway trains themselves, the people watched the water. This is the people that run the trains. Watched the water spilling into the tunnels on the cameras, watching it go down. The trains went offline. Suddenly, there's nothing happening. The trains aren't arriving at the stations anymore. The tunnels are filled with water, and there's people with about maybe 1 foot of air. You might have seen the footage. 1 foot of air between at neck height to the ceiling. They're floating in the water that's the only oxygen left in their rail car, and they're the lucky ones because once again hundreds were drowned in the subway.
Yeah. So. Yeah, a lot of them. Now, to be clear here, what happened in Germany, the people were killed while they were sleeping.
While they slept, yeah. They went to bed, nothing's wrong.
Yeah, and these people that Dave is talking about now, they were out and about. Now, I don't know if you remember this, guys, but I talked to you about a number of times now how quickly things can go south.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just what happens. Things go south in the blink of an eye. There's no warning. There's no lead up to impending doom. There's no, eerie organ music playing in the background, warning you of
setting the scene,
approaching danger. That's
foreboding music.
Yeah, and again, my family experienced it firsthand in Europe in the World Wars. Right, it just happens. It's around the corner. My grandfather fought in Breslau on the Eastern Front, and he said, "You just shoot. You go around the corner, you shoot." That's what you do. First, you shoot. Then, if it was friendly, too bad. But you shoot first. That's what you do. And that was, imagine living like that. Imagine thinking that every day someone wants to kill you, someone wants to shoot at you in a war. But at least you have a warning, I guess, right? What's happening?
Mm-hmm.
What we see happening here with these floods, not just the floods. The floods now in Germany, or in not just Germany, but certainly large parts of Western Europe, the floods in China, 1,000-year event, the floods in India. Now that we expect, where there's a monsoon season, we do expect the flooding. But we see it now in places where we don't expect the flooding, like Western Europe, like that place in China, or at least floods of this magnitude.
Yeah.
And then the fires as well. There's a whole bunch of stuff that's coming together, and there's no warning. I mean, I think I told you that the fires in Australia back in 2019, they approached my house, and I packed all the things that I could, and the photographs and whatever, and I was ready to go with my kids, right? Even though it said, oh, it's too late to leave, I would have still gone, right? But this is the thing. This fire that we had here in Australia, it moved with such speed. I don't know if you saw some of those pictures. It was like you're looking into the gates of hell, similar to what's happening in America at the moment as well, or even in Siberia. These fires are incredible. They're fanned by this wind, and it's this furnace.
They create their own wind.
Cars are melting. Entire cars are melting. Forget the tires. The entire cars, the metal is melting. That's how hot it is. You can't breathe. You can't get through it, and you die where you stand.
That's
I mean,
right.
it is horrific, but it is real. And again, this kind of stuff doesn't sneak up on you. It doesn't march to you. It does sneak up. It jumps out from behind the hedges and go, I got you.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah, so for 3 months, Becky, as you know, where I live, that we were threatened with the oncoming fire, and it got to within 10 k's, which we're really kind of lucky, so like 6 mile, but it was stopped by the unending bravery of our bush firefighting teams, and where I live, it's bush firefighting teams. We don't have regular, city fire engines. We have RFS vehicles, so it's rural fire service vehicles. And I have to tell you, this when you're in the path of the smoke, it's coming to you. The fire's coming to you when you're in the path of the smoke. When the sky goes black and it's raining ashes, it's coming to you. So I don't want to sound too much like the person from Twister, my Helen Hunt, my hall pass, because that's what she was accused of, thinking that the tornado was coming for her. I'm not saying it's coming for me, but if you're in that position, you know that you need to do something. You need to act and get out. My house is favourably built of no flammable materials, certainly on the outside. But got to say, my family first, my family thoughts first, save my family, and it's that primal instinct, Mecky.
Yeah,
I would kill someone to get my family safe, because that's who you are as people. If you couldn't care less about your family, you should just leave now. Don't, right? Go look after yourself somewhere, right? But Mecky, it led me, all of this stuff. You bring it up with someone, it just comes part of conversation, right? And it's like, well, this is we're witnessing climate change. So this is where this came from, this discussion. So whether you refuse to adhere to climate change or you have attached yourself to it, these things are happening. So it doesn't matter whether you believe it or not. It's still happening. The weather is still worsening and much more severe than it used to be. And this is backed up by the figures. I mean, the figures don't lie. I agree the climate is changing, and I'll never say it isn't. It is still returning to a pre-Ice Age status. The sea will rise more than 2 meters when the land glaciers have all gone away. We know that. I said more than 2 meters. All right. Any stupid folk will think that blocking out the sun is the way forward, but they refuse to understand where we are on the scale between meteor-caused ice age and where it will turn to. The evidence is clear and all around us. The low flat land will be covered in sea again. You can't hold it here where we used to, that there's a psychological term for wanting everything to stay the way it is.
Yeah, it's just they've
actually named it. They've named it, and the very similar thing. So, say you moved into a suburb for the first time, and the reason why your heart fell in love with the house was the community and everything around, just the way it was, and you never wanted it to change. That's actually, it's a syndrome now. It's been called something. You have to always be aware that it's always changing. So the reason why I don't care about your belief is because whether or not you think climate change is real, it's still going on. And if you don't think climate change is real, but at the same time, you hate it when people keep mentioning it every time severe weather occurs, and it really gets you on your nerves, you are being reminded against your will, and you know it, and it burns you up on the inside. I know that you will hold on to your opinion until the day you die, and possibly of climate change. These climate change people were crazy, you'll think in your head. And to you, I say good luck.
And the clear thing here is this, and I agree with the sentiment that Dave has communicated. We're not saying that this is man or human-induced climate change. You know,
you noticed that, huh?
Yeah, but the thing is, exactly, but the point here is it doesn't actually matter, because look, the climate has always changed. We're living through we have lived through a very stable, unusually stable period of climate. We have for the last few hundred years.
Yep.
You know, there were many ice ages, as you know, happening all over the world, especially in England. I think about 200 or so years ago was the last one. But the point is that the climate is always changing. Now, the Egypt 2,000 years ago was the breadbasket for the Roman Empire. Good luck trying to do that now. Okay. Now, the entire Sahel zone, the entire Sahara, the entire North African strip of desert that there is today was completely green.
It was fertile. Green. That's right.
It was fertile, right?
It was lush.
And it will be again if the projections are correct for the climate change now.
Yeah.
What's going to happen is large parts of southern Europe, like Spain, will turn into desert. Okay, that's going to happen. And the Sahara is going to turn green again. So climate change is a thing that has always been happening. The mammoths, the carcasses of the mammoths they found frozen in permafrost in Siberia, in the tundra, everywhere, right? Had buttercups in their mouth. Yep. Buttercups do not grow in Arctic frigid regions. They simply don't. So at some point, you know, Siberia must have been very moderate, a very temperate kind of climate.
Yeah, it was.
Okay? But then it wasn't all of a sudden, okay? So we need to understand that climate is always changing. And what we're seeing right now is a rapid change. Whatever the factors are, it doesn't matter. Maybe there's more dust that we're going through as the solar system, you know, enters a new area of space. Maybe sun activity is changing. I don't know. I don't know what is causing it. Are humans affected? Maybe, possibly, right? But that's not the human. Like you and I, as consumers, as people, our input into this whole climate change is tiny compared to industry. Okay, it is tiny compared to the methane that's released in a thawing tundra in Siberia. Okay, it's tiny in comparison to all of those things. And ultimately, right? Ultimately, it is. I think it is inevitable that the climate will change. It will have, because it has changed before. It'll change again, right? There is no such thing as static climate. It doesn't exist, right, on this planet, even other planets. But there just isn't. We have never lived through a static climate for thousands and thousands of years. In fact, most of the people migrations that you might have learned about in school in history were occasioned by changing climate. Okay, these massive people migrations 2,000, 3,000, 1,000, 5,000 years ago out of Central Asia into Europe. First, the Finns, right? Then the Magyars or the Hungarians. Then the Turk people, you know, the Turkic people, you know, they all came through. They all came from Central Asia. In fact, if you go to Central Asia, to Xi'an, for example, right, the province there, that's where the Uyghurs are. The Uyghurs look like nothing more than the Turk people. The Turkish people, the Turkmenistan, Central Asia, they're all the same, and they all came from there. Because that's.
Look where their land border is.
Yeah, but that's what happened, right? Something pushed them out. Chances are, Lake Baikal is drying up. One of the largest freshwater lakes in the world is now drying up to. It's lost, I think, 60 or 70% of its surface area. That's phenomenal. So it needs to be understood and acknowledged that climate change is something that just happens. I don't care who caused it. I don't know who caused it. I'm not making an argument as to who caused it here. What I will tell you is that something is going on. These flood events, these fires, unprecedented, by the way, Okay, these storms, these we had to invent new words for the severity of storms recently.
Oh yeah, we call those superstorms now.
Okay, this is it's reality.
1,000 miles across.
Yeah. But what I love is the ostrich methodology combined with circular logic that most people adopt. Oh no, this can't be happening. Also, I don't want it to happen.
That's right.
That's okay. But make no mistake, eventually the equatorial zone is going to get a lot drier. Okay, it's not going to be as I guess tropical or as it is today. Certain other parts in the world, depending on the prevailing microclimates as well, will change. Like I said before, Northern Africa is going to start blooming again. It's going to turn green, and parts of Southern Europe will turn into desert. What that means for the United States, I'm not sure. Again, it's all open for debate. And yes, we're not helping it, Dave. Of course, we're logging. We're destroying the forests. Yes, it's true. We're poisoning the seas.
That's right. We are. We're doing all those things. Meki, did you know? I love the expression that I heard Ivy West talking about this morning, my time. 12 hours ago. She said, "When your head's in the sand, your butt is vulnerable." So your butt is exposed.
No,
right, ostrich theory. When your head's in the sand, your butt's vulnerable, right?
Yeah.
Or your butt's exposed. I just love that. It resonated with me because there's a lot of people that just refuse to believe that anything is whatever anyone says. And that's a good position, but once you hear evidence, you're supposed to make a decision. And that doesn't happen. I don't hear people going, "Oh yeah, actually, yeah, since you say that, yeah, that kind of makes sense. Yeah. Well, thanks for opening my eyes." That conversation never happens.
See,
they dig their heels in.
Just because someone disagrees with you doesn't mean they hate you. Okay,
that's true.
I think we have lost the art of having a proper discourse, a proper conversation, a proper discussion about things where people put forward their argument, and then the better argument wins. Right? We now have moved into the area and era of faith. It's now faith-based. I mean, I believe this, I believe that. It's not, look, I've got evidence for this or I've got evidence for that. Or let's look at the evidence. Let's look at what's happening without an opinion. Let's just see what is happening. Okay, this is what's happening. Right, gotcha. Now, what do we think that means? We don't see that. What we see is opinions, right? So, funny thing is, I told you about a knowledge democracy, right, before, where someone's ignorance is as good as another person's actual knowledge. Because these days with social media and a whole bunch of other things, we can all sprout our opinions. We can say whatever we want. I mean, some people are really stupid when they do that. Remember that guy that tweeted about tricking women to have unprotected relations with him? I don't know if you saw that.
Really?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, some of the stuff is just phenomenal. I mean, but people think that they should share with others, right? And there's the music. So opinion doesn't equal fact.
This is David Meki's Shiny Side Out. The end of the first hour. We'll be back after a short break. And if you're listening to this on YouTube, there's a second stream for the second hour. See you in a minute. I'll take the time to donate.